Okay, in my last couple of videos, I talked about this notion, this reported cheating by Red Bull with their braking system, giving their car an illegal advantage, and if that's true, that they should be disqualified from at least the first 5 races and the sprint race of this season. And I talked about what the Drivers' Championship and Constructors' Championship would look like if they are disqualified from their events, and that's what I'm going to go into with this video. So it's not going to be a long video, this one, but before I get into that, I just want to go through something with the people that are new to the channel. Over the past 6 to 8 weeks, this channel, relatively speaking, has exploded in size. I've been banging away for about 18 months and slowly amassed about 2,000 subscribers, but then about 6 or 8 weeks ago, dropped a video where I put the thumbnail about Andrew Benson finally revealing the truth about Abu Dhabi, and that got a lot more views than I've ever had before, and gradually the channel has started to grow. The reality is, what's in that video, Andrew Benson has never revealed, and that is the corruption of the press. They are not telling the truth. But if you've not seen that video, it's the one with about 140,000 views now. It's very long. It's about an hour and 43 minutes long. But it goes through the commentary of the last 4 to 5 laps of Abu Dhabi, and it exposes all the lies that are being told by Martin Brundle and David Croft and the true implications of them. So if you've not seen it, take a look at it. It will open your eyes. It will open your eyes. But as I say, the media are not exposing the truth. And now, I set this YouTube channel up for a specific purpose. I spent a year on Facebook trying to expose the corruption of Abu Dhabi in a written form, and it needed to be done in video format to evidence certain things. So if you've not already read the description of the channel, I wrote this when I set the channel up. So the about section of my channel is that this channel has been created to expose the true reality of the systematic corruption that is taking place in the sport of Formula One. Almost 12 months on from one of the most corrupt events that has ever taken place in sport, none of the mainstream media has told the truth about the event, despite many of us contacting them on multiple occasions to try to get them to expose the truth. And I can evidence that. And on my Facebook page, there is evidence of me contacting Sky Sports to say to them, you are misleading people with how you are presenting this. I did that back in January of 2022. They just essentially flicked me the V's. They are not interested in what I'm saying. They are corrupt. Over the course of time, over the experience of what I've had in trying to do what it is I'm trying to do, things have become very clear to me as to how these things actually work. And I'm trying to expose this to people so that you understand the reality of what is really going on here. So I've tried to contact other YouTube channels who are much better at this than I am, but to no avail. So it has come to this. Excuse my lack of talent, but focus on the content. You as a viewer of the sport of Formula One have been lied to. You've been presented with a corrupt agenda. It is time that the perpetrators are held to account, and there is a consequence for their criminal actions. And it's got, for those who want to read the detailed articles that I've written that expose each of the elements of the corruption, check out my Facebook page, and there is a link there to that Facebook page. So that is the purpose of what it is I'm doing. This, as I said, I don't really want to focus on all of these dramas that continually keep cropping up in this show. Every week or two, there's a new controversy, there's a new thing that's being talked about, and then nothing ever happens. That's the nature of it. But social media is buzzing for the week or two. All the content creators are talking about it. All of the space of Formula One's buzzing, so it's good for anybody that wants to advertise in that, because there's a lot of eyes on their products. So the sport of Formula One makes a lot of money out of it. These are parts of the dynamics of it. They introduce in the drama, there's a buzz about it, and money's being made. Okay, this is all part of the dynamics of the situation. With regard to our Red Bull cheating, well, I will say this. I don't trust Red Bull. They've got a history of cheating. They've got a history of lying. In Abu Dhabi 2021, Martin Brundle, the expert of the sport, will say to the world, "Oh, I don't know how you unravel that. Red Bull did nothing wrong. Max Verstappen did nothing wrong. I don't know how you unravel that." That's what Martin Brundle has said to the world. Well, Red Bull did do something wrong. Red Bull coerced the official of the sport to break the rules of the sport, which their clever wording will say, "Oh no, we didn't tell him to break the rules. Just telling him that the cars don't have to go right around the track, and then we have a motor race on our hands." Oh, Jonathan Wheatley there, right? Oh, that's not breaking the rules, is it, Jonathan? No, we purposely made sure that we didn't tell him to break the rules by wording it like that. We're the experts of the wordings of the rules and regulations, or certainly are Red Bull. No, you did break the rules, though, Red Bull, by going into that steward's appeal and presenting a corrupt version of those regulations, which the stewards then decided were the correct interpretation, despite never operating them that way for the previous 10 years that they'd been in operation. They invited Red Bull into an appeal that they had no part in being in, allowed Red Bull to present a completely different version, a different interpretation as to how these regulations could now be interpreted, and the stewards went, "Oh yeah, that sounds feasible. We'll go with Red Bull's version for this." So yes, they did do something wrong. They are corrupt. They are liars. We know that Christian Horner is a liar. We know that Christian Horner denied Red Bull breaching the budget cap. Christian Horner would be the sort of guy that then threatens legal action against you if you want to say anything negative about Red Bull or make allegations of such a nature. "Oh, you do that and I'll come at you with my lawyers," will say Christian. And then a month down the line, it turns out, yeah, you did break it, didn't you? Now what, Christian? Now what? You're a pathological liar. So don't trust Red Bull. And don't trust the FIA. The FIA are pathological liars. They're proven to be pathological liars. They broke the rules to set up the fix. They broke the rules to confirm the fix. And then the report that they wrote about it, which I guarantee you most of you will not have gone through, but I'm going to on this channel. That was the biggest pile of steaming turd that you could ever read. A child could have written it better. And that is what they presented to the world as being the report into, oh, this is how Abu Dhabi went wrong, but this is the circumstances. I'm sure you all understand these. This is what we're going to learn from it. And they presented that to the World Motorsport Council, and the World Motorsport Council went, "Oh yes, that's a good report, well done," and signed it off, approved it. And I'll just gonna rip it apart. I'm going to show you how laughable that FIA report is when I get round to it, which hopefully won't be too long. But we look at these regulations, and 11.1.2 is the key. The brake system must be designed so that within each circuit, we know there's a front circuit for the front brakes and a rear circuit for the rear brakes, the force is applied to the brake pads, and the force being applied, okay, we've got to assume that the brake calipers on a Formula One car are essentially the same as the brake calipers on a road car. I might be wrong, I don't know for sure. We've got to make assumptions. And this is part of the problem with speculating about Formula One, which is why I don't like getting into the speculation. Unless you actually work on these things, and unless you actually know, you're just speculating. And that's why I don't see too much value in a lot of these content creators. They'll go, "Oh, what do you think about this?" Well, you don't know, so what you think has limited value. But we can make deductions, assuming, and again, it's an assumption, that the brake calipers are of a similar format to a road car. The way it'll operate is the caliper essentially hooks over the brake disc. It holds a brake pad on the outside of that brake disc, and it holds a brake pad on the inside of that brake disc, and you have a piston, okay, which is forced out using the pressure of hydraulic fluid, and that piston pushing out when you depress the brake pedal, okay, it forces brake fluid from this master cylinder, which is actuated by the brake pedal, and that pushes fluid to the slave cylinder by the piston in the respective caliper, and that pushes the inner brake pad outwards, clamping that brake disc between the inner and outer pad within that caliper. Okay, and that increased friction of this clamping motion of between these two pads retards the rotating brake disc, causing that braking action. Okay, we've got to assume that the Formula One car operates in that same manner. So, if that's the case, that wording is very simple, isn't it? The brake system must be designed so that within each circuit, the force is applied to the brake pads. Okay, so that's that brake pads. We're talking about the force applied to the inner right and left brake pads, because that's where the force is being applied to the brake pads, okay, are the same magnitude and act as opposing pairs on a given brake disc. Because essentially what you're then doing, the force being applied to the inner brake pad creates this clamping force between the two pads on that respective caliper, on that respective disc that it's acting on. Okay, so this acts as opposing pairs on a given brake disc. Well, yeah, you've got your pair on your right disc and your pair on your left disc. The pressure is being applied to the inner pad of each caliper on the right hand side and on the left hand side. That's where the pressure is being applied to the inner pads, and that pressure then pushes the inner pad towards the outer pad, clamping the disc. All right, so the forces applied to the brake pads are the same magnitude, and they act as opposing pairs on a given brake disc. That's really straightforward, isn't it? That fact of the forces applied are the same magnitude means you can't have asymmetric braking. You don't need to clarify that. So just the very fact that the FIA have made a clarification would suggest that somebody has been doing something that is producing. Let's actually read what the regulation says. Okay, because what they're now saying you can't do this means that somebody has been doing this. All right. Any system or mechanism which can produce systematically or intentionally asymmetric braking torques for a given axle is forbidden. So I would suggest that for them to actually have to put that in the regulations and for them to word it like that, somebody has been doing that. And they've had to write it specifically to say, well, you doing that is not allowed. So we'll read through that again. Any system or mechanism which can produce systematically or intentionally asymmetric braking torques for a given axle is forbidden. Now, the wording above essentially says that is what it produces. That is what it means. But they've had to add that extra bit in, which still means the same. But you look at the wording of that, it would indicate, that wording would indicate that that is exactly what at least one of those teams has been doing. And then we look at how these cars are performing, the fact that that kind of thing would give you an advantage, which team had an advantage, which team appears to now have lost that advantage. Well, these things are pointing to Red Bull, aren't they? Now, as I say, At the moment, it's speculation. The likelihood of Red Bull ever admitting that and telling the truth, well, if you believe that they're going to tell the truth, I think that's unlikely. I hope they do. I'd love it to be true, but I don't think we're going to get the truth from Red Bull. Are we going to get the truth from the FIA? Well, did we get the truth about whether or not, or what was going on with these supposed flexi planks? These planks that were intentionally designed so that they could flex in 2022, and these slider pucks that apparently were designed to recess up into the underfloor of the cars. What did we hear about that? That's illegal on both counts. We heard murmurings that, oh, this might be what some of these teams are doing. Then it all went quiet. And then we had the FIA introduced new anti-porpoising regulations that all the teams had to comply with. And they then, that was a mid-season regulation change that all the teams had to then comply with by a certain deadline. That doesn't normally happen. That doesn't normally happen. So they dressed that up as a safety concern, which it is, because having to drive around being smashed around in the way that Mercedes was smashing its drivers around, well, that's dangerous. You try driving a car at speed on the limit while the car's doing that to you, well, no thank you. No thank you. But it's rather strange that you hear nothing of the alleged things that are going on. You don't get the FIA coming out and saying, well, this is what they were doing. That certainly when it relates to the possibility of Red Bull doing it, that's for sure. Anyway, I'm now going to get into the impact of what potential cheating has had on this championship, and then what things would look like if the right thing is done. So we're talking about the first 5 Grand Prix of the season and the sprint race, which is where the Red Bull car is alleged to have been using this device this season. Now, after that Chinese Grand Prix, this is how the World Championship looked. And this is after the sprint race as well. So Max Verstappen was leading the championship. He'd won 4 of those 5 Grand Prix. The only one that he hadn't won was the Australian Grand Prix, where that brake exploded on his car. If you remember, we got smoke coming out of his car, and then he has to retire on about the 4th lap, something like that. And as he's driving into the pits, that rear brake explodes and something is propelled into the barriers. Very dangerous. Okay, but Max had got 4 wins. He'd got 2 of the fastest laps. No, has he got more than fastest laps? Because actually he'd won the sprint. And you get 8 points. No, it must have been 2. So you get 8 points for winning the sprint, 25 points for each of the 4 wins, and must have been 2 fastest laps. So he was on 110. Perez, he was on 85 points because Red Bull had secured numerous 1-2s in those opening 4 races of the season. Where's Perez now? What's going on with Perez's car? Oh, it's Max has got the car set up for Max. He likes it very pointy. He likes it on the nose. Maybe Perez just breaks in a straight line and doesn't. I don't know. Who knows? Anyway, so at that point in time, Charles Leclerc was 3rd on 76 points. Carlos Sainz in the Ferrari, 69 points, 4th position in the table. Bear in mind with Sainz, he had missed the Saudi Grand Prix. Was it appendicitis he had? Did he have to have his appendicitis? That's the one there where Oliver Bearman subbed in for him and got 10 points at that race. All right. But Carlos Sainz has only competed in 4 of them Grand Prix. Norris in 5th, Piastri 6th. Okay, so we've got Red Bull, Ferrari, McLaren, and then we've got George Russell, Fernando Alonso, and Lewis Hamilton. So that was the top 9 in the championship. Lance Stroll is down here in 10th, but you'll see I'm not really going to look at Lance Stroll in the statistics, because we know on from this to where we are now in the season, Lance Stroll hasn't performed. So really we're just going to look at those top 9 competitors and see how they would fare if you remove the Red Bull cars from those first 5 events and that sprint race in China. So if we look at the F1 results page, so we go to Bahrain first of all. Bahrain, first race of the season. Winner, Max Verstappen. Second place, Perez. Max Verstappen got the fastest lap, 26 points. So in that race, Max Verstappen won that race with a margin of 22 seconds over his teammate, and Perez was 3 seconds ahead of Sainz in the Ferrari. You take away those 2 Red Bull cars, Carlos Sainz of Ferrari is the race winner. The fastest lap then would be achieved by Charles Leclerc, and everybody else in that running order moves up 2 positions, and therefore their points tallies increase accordingly. That's Bahrain, first race of the season. If we then go to the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix, second race of the season. Winner, Max Verstappen. And the margin of victory was 13 seconds over his teammate Perez, who was 5 seconds ahead of Charles Leclerc. Okay. 25 points, 18 points. So Leclerc once again gets the fastest lap in that race. You take away Verstappen and Perez, Charles Leclerc in a Ferrari is the race winner. Everybody moves up 2 positions. Next race, Australian Grand Prix. Now this is the one where Max's brake disc exploded, so he's a DNF, as is Hamilton, as is George Russell in this event. So we've got a valid winner. This is assuming that Ferrari aren't operating a cheat device as well. But Carlos Sainz is the winner of this event. Charles Leclerc second, but also gets the fastest lap again. Lando Norris is third. Fifth is Perez in the Red Bull. Okay, so fifth is the best that Perez can do. You take him out of that running order. Now, is it congruent that Perez's car actually is used to utilising this device, or is it just that Perez can't drive as well as Max can with that device? Who knows? Who knows? But that's the situation. Perez was fifth, so you remove him from there. Lance Stroll gets the 10 points. Tsunoda gets the 8 points. Alonso gets the 6 points. Next event was the Japanese Grand Prix, and Max Verstappen returns to winning ways. So the only one he's not, this is the 4th race of the season, the only one he's not won is the Australian Grand Prix, where that brake exploded. He's won that event. His teammate's second, his teammate's 12 seconds behind, and Perez is 8 seconds ahead of Sainz, who, again, Ferrari. Fastest lap is Max Verstappen. So you take away those 2 Red Bull cars. The race is won by a Ferrari of Carlos Sainz. Second place is a Ferrari of Charles Leclerc. Global kudos of Ferrari, when Ferrari will have won the first 4 races of the season were it not for Red Bull cheating. How much does that cost Ferrari? How much is that worth to them? Winning the first 4 races of the season. How much does their value go up? Off the back of it being announced that Lewis Hamilton is moving to them. Been deprived of that, haven't they? So everybody moves up 2 positions there, and everybody gets the respective points increase. Then we move to China. So the Chinese Grand Prix, Max Verstappen. Okay, Max Verstappen wins. Second in this one is Lando Norris, 13 seconds behind Max Verstappen. Perez in third, who is a further 6 seconds back. So you remove the two Red Bull cars. Lando Norris is the winner. Charles Leclerc is second. Carlos Sainz is third. Now, Lando Norris, up until that point, had never won a Formula One Grand Prix. He'd never won a Grand Prix up until the following race that was in Miami. Now, I think Lando was undone with the safety car, perhaps, in the Chinese Grand Prix. But in Miami, a manufactured timing of the deployment of the safety car there seemed to massively benefit Lando Norris. I mean, you can't contrive these things. You can't contrive the timing of the deployment of the safety car, can you? You know, the show that's owned by Liberty Media, and you know their preferred candidate for the US presidential elections. You know, the man with the Midas touch. You know, Mr. Trump, old Donald there. He pays a visit to the McLaren garage to wish them well, and yeah, he certainly must have had that Midas touch because Lando Norris ends up winning in Miami. You couldn't make it up, could you? But he wouldn't have had to wait as long for his maiden victory if he wasn't competing against that illegal Red Bull car in China. So again, we've had the first 4 races won by Ferrari, and now we've got a McLaren winning. Pretty significant. China, big market. Okay, so the kudos of winning over there. Loads of fans potentially. What's that going to do for your personal profile as a driver if you're the winner of their event? Are you going to be getting a lot more support? Is that going to sell a lot more merchandise? Is that going to make you a lot more revenue as an individual due to your fan base in that particular country? Who knows? Don't know how this works. But Max Verstappen was a recorded winner of that one. Now, in China, there was also a sprint event. So if we go to the sprint, that was won by Maxwell Verstappen. So he picked up 8 points for the win. Now, look at that. In 19 laps, he's got a winning margin of 13 seconds over second place, which was Lewis Hamilton in the Mercedes. He's pulled out a gap of 13 seconds in 19 laps. That is the performance advantage of that Red Bull. Now, I know the strap-on fanboys are just going to go, oh, he's able to do that because he's Supermax. That's why he can do it, because he himself is the one that's just so fast. Well, the results of the rest of the season don't demonstrate that, does it? The strap-on fanboys are finally learning that actually you have to have a car that's capable of that in order to do that, because you can't do that if the car's not that quick. Okay? So yes, there's driver skill, but you've still got to have a car underneath you that's capable of doing that. And when Max hasn't got the car that's capable of doing that, Max can't do that. Let that sink in. All right? None of them can do it if the car's not up to scratch. One of the reasons why many of us will describe Lewis Hamilton as being the best that we've seen is the fact that Lewis Hamilton can take a car that is not necessarily the very best and still win races with it. Okay? That is what makes a good driver a great driver. Because there has been several seasons where that Mercedes wasn't the fastest car. There's been seasons where it was, but there has been seasons where it wasn't the fastest car, and yet Hamilton has still won championships. Now, if the Red Bull's not the fastest car, is Max Verstappen capable of winning a championship? Well, for a lot of the 2021 season, the Red Bull was the fastest car, and he wasn't capable of winning that one, was he? Yeah, we're not going to get into that one in this particular video. I don't want to go on too long in this one. So, we remove Verstappen from that sprint victory. We remove Perez from third. Hamilton becomes the winner, receives 8 points. And Leclerc comes second on 7th points. And everybody moves up 2 positions. So what does that mean? Well, rather than the Drivers' Championship looking like that at that stage of the season, you disqualify Max Verstappen, so he's nowhere. Them 110 points are wiped out. He's on 0. Perez, them 85 points are wiped out. He's on 0. But rather than Charles Leclerc being on 76 points, he has now got a record of second in Bahrain, 18 points plus 1 for the fastest lap. He won Saudi, 25 points plus 1. Second in Australia, 18 points plus 1 for the fastest lap. 18 points in Japan for coming second. 18 points in China for coming second. And 7 points in the Chinese sprint race for coming second in that. So Leclerc has actually got 31 points extra, meaning his tally at that stage should be 107 points. Sainz, currently there 4th with the top 2 positions wiped out. Well, Sainz would have won Bahrain, 25 points. Didn't compete in Saudi because of that medical issue. I think it was a burst appendix. I think I'm right in saying that. Beerman subbed him for him, got 10 points. Okay, but obviously they don't count for Sainz himself. They will add to Ferrari's constructors' points though. Third race of the season, Australia, Sainz won that. Well, he actually won that without any disqualification of the Red Bulls. Japan, Sainz would have won that and a point for the fastest lap there. China, he came third and he came third in the sprint event. So overall, 28 extra points onto Carlos Sainz's tally there, and that gives him a total of 97, which is 10 points behind Leclerc. Now I can go through each of them drivers in the same way, but I'm just going to speed this up by going to this little PowerPoint slide that I've made. What it means is this: after Red Bull disqualifications in those first 5 Grand Prix and their sprint event, the Drivers' Championship would look like this. Lando Norris would be leading it. He'd be on 221 points, which is the 199 that he's listed as having now, but with 22 added to that, which is the extra points he would have got in those first 5 events when he shunted up places within that final finishing order. Leclerc would be in second position on 208 points, which is the 177 that he's listed as having now, plus the extra 31 that he would have received. Sainz, third position, 190 points, which is listed there. He's currently listed as having 162 plus 28. And as I say, with Sainz, he missed one of those Grand Prix, and he's only 18 points behind Leclerc. Sainz is no longer going to be a Ferrari driver. Sainz couldn't get a drive for a top team now. He's now can only get a drive for Williams. Now that's quite a come down. In a Ferrari, you've got the chance of challenging for championships. You know, unless you're in one of them top teams, you're not really going to get the chance. Now this is a guy that should be third in the championship. If this is where he's actually at, surely his kudos as a driver would afford him a better chance than just a driver at Williams. Surely Mercedes would see him as a better proposition. If he'd won the first 3 races of the season and was sitting, well, it's not the first 3 races, 3 of the first 4 races, and the only one that he didn't win was because he missed it due to a medical issue. That changes his career. that changes his earning potential. This is the thing that this impacts. When people cheat, okay, there are consequences. They become the winner. They get the gains. They get the illegal gains. They get to keep them illegal gains. So they're the ones that get the benefit. Look who's impacted. Look whose lives are impacted. Look whose careers impacted. Now, you might not have sympathy for that. You might look at all of these Formula One drivers and go, wow, these lads are all come from wealthy families. They're all multimillionaires. Let's not worry about that. They're all doing all right out of it. And you can look at it like that. Or you can bring this back to your own life. All of us have got our hopes, our dreams, the things that we're working towards, the things that we invest our time and energy and that we dedicate our efforts to try and achieve things and accomplish things. And if we are prevented from doing that due to corruption, that's not acceptable. Carlos Sainz would like to be an F1 world champion. This season, look how his season would have started were it not for cheating Red Bull cars. Won Bahrain, couldn't compete in Saudi, won Australia, won Japan, third in China. Now this is off the back of it being announced that Lewis Hamilton was moving to Ferrari. Now, what would all the headlines be around? This is the guy that Ferrari are getting rid of, and he has won the 3 races of the season out of the 4 that he's competed in. You know, and he's finished third in China. And Ferrari are getting rid of him. Now, surely all of the other teams would be clambering to sign him. Red Bull would be looking to sign him as a replacement for Perez, surely. Mercedes would want to probably put him in the seat that's vacated by Hamilton. But you now look at the situation that is reported to us. Well, I'll show you where Sainz is on the BBC's list of the current standings, and it's just not as impressive. You then got Piastri, 187 points. Then you've got equal 5th, which is Verstappen and Hamilton, both on 167 points. Now, Verstappen is currently listed as having 277 points, but if you deduct those 110 points that he amassed in those first 5 races in the sprint, that brings him down to 167. Hamilton's listed as having 150, but he, again, didn't have a great start to the season at all, but still should be on 17 more points than he's currently got, taking him to 167. I put Verstappen ahead in that list because Verstappen may have more race wins. Ultimately, it doesn't really matter. Then you've got 7th position. You jump to 7th because if you've got an equal, then that takes up 5th and 6th. Russell is on 135 points. He would have got 19 more than he's currently got. Then it's Alonso on 68 points. He'd have got 19 more points than the 49 that he's currently listed as having. And in 9th place then, you've got Perez down on 46 points. After you deduct the 85 points that he amassed in those first 5 races from the 131 that he's now got. So since those first 5 races, Perez has only got 46 points. And Red Bull have renewed his contract. Red Bull want to keep him. Why are you keeping him, Red Bull? Why would you know that the constructors' prize money is determined by what your team achieves, and you've only got one guy that's kind of weighing in on that points total. So surely you'd want to upgrade on your driver number 2 to give yourself a better chance of earning that prize money and winning that constructors' championship. Surely, why are you keeping Perez if he's not doing that and giving your team the best chance of winning that prize pot? How do you answer that to your shareholders, Red Bull? Your investors, how do you square that with them? Yeah, this is why we're retaining that guy when Carlos Sainz is on the market. This guy that would have won 3 of the first 4 races of the season if we weren't cheating. So that's the Drivers' Championship. Constructors' Championship, well, this is how this would look. Ferrari would have 408 points, and so would McLaren. But Ferrari would be top at the moment based on the number of race wins. Third place would be Mercedes on 302, and Red Bull would be down in fourth on 213 points. Now, what's the significance of that? Well, we know that the prize money is awarded to the Constructors' Championship. And if we look at what that distribution of money is supposed to be, well, last year, Red Bull supposedly were awarded $140 million for winning. Okay. Second place was 131 million, which was Mercedes. Third place, 122 million. Now, currently, Red Bull are in first place, so that would give them 140. Ferrari, I think, are in third, 122. We'll double check that on the current standing. So Constructors' Championship, yeah, Ferrari are in third at the moment. So with that being the case, the difference between first and third is $18 million. Now, $18 million, if you're being cheated out of $18 million, I wouldn't be too happy about that. And what does that impact? Well, that impacts your team. You've probably got 2,000 employees working in your whole operation in producing a Formula One car and everything that goes along with it. And if you win the Constructors' Championship, you get a bonus. Now, we're told that the bonus awarded to those Mercedes employees when they win the title was kind of four figures, so £10,000 per head or more as a bonus. Now, that's significant. You know, that affords you a lot more choices in life. If you're on a salary of £20,000 to £30,000, if you get a bonus for having won something of, say, £10,000, well, that's significant. You know, that's half of your wages or a third of your wages again as a bonus. That's a massive boost. You know, that really can give you a big boost in life. That can enable you to buy a really good holiday, or, you know, upgrade your car or whatever, do home improvements. That's a significant amount of money. 2,000 employees at these teams aren't getting that. Why aren't they getting that? Well, because somebody's cheated. Is that okay? Now, the strap-on fanboy, you will always want to justify this. You the kind of people that you are, okay, is this. You know, you like pointing the finger and going, ha ha, ha ha, stop crying, this is Supermax. Now, the thing is, like, how does it feel for you, right, when it could be your boy that's affected, okay? When it's your boy that is left without a drive, or only gets picked up by the team that's kind of 8th best on the grid. You know, how does that feel for you? When your boy could be the one that is challenging for a world championship and is discarded by his team despite his performances, and because them performances don't look as good as they could be because of somebody else cheating, the other teams, they don't really want to look at him because, you know, in the standings he's only 5th and it doesn't look that impressive, and everyone's forgot that he's missed that race on medical grounds anyway. So yeah, Carlos Sainz. Do you go for Sainz, who, you know, was at Red Bull and then went to McLaren and then hasn't won anything at Ferrari, or do you invest in new talent? Well, you look at Sainz's results. Well, win, medically couldn't complete win, third in the sprint. On that record, at that stage of the season, when teams are potentially looking to sort out their driver lineup for the 2025 season, I'd think Carlos Sainz would be a good option to select. But it didn't appear that way. Didn't appear as good as it could have been, did it? Didn't appear as good as it could have been for Carlos, because there were 2 cars ahead of him that were ahead of him because they were cheating. Whose career is being impacted? Whose life is being impacted? Now I say whose life is being impacted, and the reason I say that is like, let me find the right things. No, we'll go to this one first. 2021, this was the estimated driver salaries. Hamilton was projected to have won $62 million in salary and bonuses. Back then, Verstappen was on $25 million, never had won a world championship back in 2021. Still hasn't, validly. Fernando Alonso on $20 million. Okay, so that was 2021. Supposedly having been gifted the world championship, these figures do vary from place to place. It's now saying Max Verstappen on 35 million. I heard reports at the time saying he'd had his salary increased to 45 million off the back of supposedly winning Abu Dhabi 2021. All right, these are people's salaries that are listed there. Carlos Sainz $10 million, Charles Leclerc $12 million in 2022. We now look at 2024. Max Verstappen, 45 million salary, 25 million in bonuses. So if you are supposedly acknowledged as the world champion of the sport, back when Max Verstappen wasn't a world champion, he was on $25 million a season. Now that he's this supposed 3-time world champion, he's on $70 million a season. How's Carlos Sainz's life? Is Carlos Sainz being given a fair crack of reaching that sort of thing? Is how people perceive Carlos Sainz accurate? Where does Carlos Sainz realistically sit in that field of drivers in terms of his ability? And where is he on the pay scale? So, like I say, you strap on fanboys. You like pointing the finger. You like saying, ha ha, you Lewis Hamilton fanboys, and so on and so forth. But how does it make you feel when it's somebody that you do like? Because let's be clear, yeah, okay, some of the strap-on fanboys are Dutch, they like their countrymen, but many of them aren't. Many of the strap-on fanboys are English, and many of them are other nationalities, and the reason they're strap-on fanboys is because they just hate the black guy. And so they'd rather anyone win than Lewis, and they just love the fact that somebody's beating Lewis Hamilton. So they don't really care that it's Max Verstappen. They just like the fact that it's not Lewis. That's who you are. That's who you are. And there is a word for you. I call you strap-on fanboys. But there's a word that's existed for a while, and that's called racist. You won't like being called that, will you? You won't like that. You'll claim that you've got a black friend. I'm sure you have. So that means that you're not racist, but you hate Hamilton. But yeah, that's because you don't like what he wears, or you think he's brought it on himself for standing for LGBTQ or for Black Lives Matter. So he deserves to have lost it for campaigning for equality amongst society. Because you don't realise that that's what it was about, really, do you? You don't actually realise that what he stands for is actually standing for you. You don't get it, do you? Because equality within society, unless you're one of the billionaires, unless you're one of the very top, the so-called elite, millionaire, unless you're one of them, then what Lewis Hamilton stands for us, all of us. But you're too retarded, too thick to realise that. Your bigotry and your hatred overrides all that. Your lack of education means you don't understand that. But what have you got? You got that. That's essentially, I read so many comments, and essentially that's all it says. It says, I like Max Verstappen, and that. There is no substance to any of the trolling shit that you come here with. Nothing. And you don't stop to consider the impact. You just look at it, the impact that it's having on the guy that you choose to hate, and you like that. You don't stop and think of the impact it has on everybody else. Each of the other drivers, each of the other teams, each of the employees that work for those teams, and how it affects their lives. And that somebody cheating and depriving them of the bonuses that they should be validly accomplishing, things that are going to affect their lives. What if it's your son or your daughter that's got a low-level job for one of these Formula One teams? They're on only 20 grand a year. Okay, because that's what some of them roles pay. And if they got a 10 grand bonus if that team won, well, that'd be a massive amount of money for them. But they don't get that because one of them teams is cheating and one of them teams takes that prize money. But you don't care, do you, strap-on fanboys? You point the finger and go, ha ha, I like Max Verstappen. That's all you've got. That's all you've got. Now I'm going to finish up on this video, but if you've not already seen it, it's only had 2.3 thousand views and it deserves a lot more. It's over on Wonderful's YouTube channel. I'll put a link in the description to this one. But it's saying you are better F1 pundits than the Sky F1 team. I've been saying this for a long, long time. I've been pointing out the lies and the narrative that they give us for a long, long time. But I think he articulated it as well. So if you've got a spare 10 minutes, head across and have a look at that video there. And I think there'll be a lot of you nodding your heads when you watch what he has to say about it. People need to start waking up to reality here. We are being fed a narrative. We're being fed lies. We're not going to get the truth from the FIA or Red Bull as to whether or not they have been cheating. But ask yourself the question, why on earth do the FIA feel it necessary to write this bit in purple in this amendment to the regulations if a team has not been doing that? Exactly that it's now saying you can't do in the regulations. What would that give you in terms of an advantage? And which team no longer appears to have that advantage? Well, if we go to this, I went through these and the winning margins. If we then go to, well, Miami was the one that Lando Norris won with the dodgy safety car with Trump having the Midas touch. Not for the first time that the safety car has been used in a race to manipulate a result. Obviously Abu Dhabi, but check out the 2018 Chinese Grand Prix, back when Charlie Whiting was the race director. Just go and have a look. If those of you got F1 TV, go and have a look. You might learn something there. I might do a video on it at some point. Trouble is, when I use the footage, it gets blocked. So I might wait until I've got ownership of it, but we'll see. If you look at the winning margin for Emilia Romagna, it's 0.725 seconds that Lando Norris was behind in second place. So that gap of 13 to 20 seconds for Max Verstappen, well, That seems to have disappeared then. And then what else? What are the other races that, well, Monaco, we know that Leclerc won there. What happened in Canada? Oh, Max Verstappen won, beat Lando Norris by just 3.8 seconds. So that gap seems to have disappeared again, doesn't it? It's not the 13 to 20 seconds that it previously was. What happened in Spain? Oh, Max Verstappen won, beat Lando Norris by, just 2.2 seconds there. Not the 13 to 20 seconds that it previously was. What happened in Austria? Oh, Max Verstappen and Lando Norris had a crash, with Lando Norris then having to avoid being taken out again after the crash by Max Verstappen. What happened in Great Britain? Oh, Sir Lewis Hamilton won that one. What happened in Hungary? Well, what happened in Hungary? Well, that was when Max Verstappen crashed into Lewis Hamilton. That was that one. And then what's next? Belgium. What happened there? Belgium was where Mercedes tried to screw Lewis Hamilton and got found out for cheating. So, and what happens if you get found out for cheating? Oh, you get disqualified. Is that what happens if you get found out for cheating? What happens? George Russell was cheating because he didn't comply with the regulations, and he's disqualified. Funny that. Felix Holter, one of the corrupt stewards from Abu Dhabi, he knows how to apply the rules correctly to Mercedes. But if Red Bull are cheating by doing what is said in purple there, what do we hear? And what happens? Not a lot. Not a lot happens, does it? Not a lot happens, but some of you are loving that, aren't you? Some of you are loving it. Anyway, to all the good people out there, thank you for your time. Thank you for supporting the channel. Thank you for those of you that are subscribed to the channel. And thank you to those of you that are sharing the content. You are helping the channel grow. You are helping more and more people see what it is I'm saying. And for those of you that have only watched 1 or 2 videos so far, either start looking through the back catalogue, but hang in there for the new content that I'm going to be putting out that is definitely going to expose the stuff. I'm going to put a link to the video that's had 140,000 views, the one where I'm saying the BBC are now exposing the truth about Abu Dhabi. If you've not looked at that, please take the time to look at it, because it will open your eyes to the truth of the way that Sky Sports were lying to the global world about what was possible at Abu Dhabi before it even happened. Okay, so if you've not seen that, take a look through that, but stick with it, because I guarantee you I'll be revealing stuff about Abu Dhabi that you will not have considered. Thank you for your time.